Hello, my name is Nathan McLeod, and I am the owner and CEO of Goodleads. Now, I'm not going to spend very much time in this training talking about myself. After all, you're not here to learn about me, you're here to learn about how to make more money off of the appointments you currently have booked. So very briefly, I have been doing sales and running appointments in many different industries over the last 15 years. I have been blessed to work with the top salespeople in the real estate industry, in the insurance industry, in the trades, and in Fortune 500 companies. But more importantly than that, I operate the company Goodleads, and we set appointments and create leads for businesses all across the United States in many different industries. The reason why I bring that to your attention is that this training is an accumulation of all of the tactics throughout all of the different industries that is going to help you be the absolute best at closing appointments. And this training is not my own guesswork, and it's also not based solely on my own experience. This training is based on what is working literally today in all the industries across the United States, including the industry that you are in right now. So if you want to generate customers better than your competitors do, then stay tuned in this training. This training is broken up into 4 different sections. Section 1 is right now, and we're going to cover the basic do's and don'ts for your appointments. So, as for the do's and don'ts when doing your appointment, these are all the things that we should have mastered before ever showing up on site for the appointment itself. First and foremost, you should show up on time for your appointment. Do not show up late, and also do not show up early. Now, the reason why you don't show up late is pretty self-explanatory. You do not want to convey to your customer that you lack self-discipline. You don't want to put into the minds of your potential customer that if he's late to this appointment, he's probably going to be late in finishing the project. He might not be reliable. However, you also do not want to show up early for your appointment. Showing up early for your appointment sets a different type of precedent in your prospect's mind, but this precedent can be just as damaging for you as showing up late. When you show up early for an appointment, you are demonstrating to your potential customer that you are not busy, that you have nowhere else that you need to be. Now, this might seem subtle to you, but this has massive implications. We want to be in the driver's seat throughout this entire appointment. And if your potential customer believes that you have nowhere else to be or you have nothing better to do than to be on this appointment, it puts them in the driver's seat. Your potential customer needs to know that you are busy and that you do this all the time. And also, you do not need them, the potential customer, to buy your product or service. They actually need you to perform this service. And that is what you need to have on the base level before you even start the appointment. So do yourself a favor and come to the appointment on time. Item 2 is to dress as nicely as reasonably possible. Now, as I stated previously, these methods work for any industry. And as you can imagine, the dress code is going to vary quite a bit. If you are in professional services, such as real estate or insurance or money management of any sort, you should be dressed very business professional. I would recommend a suit or at the very least a sport coat and a tie. After all, if you are going to tell your potential customer to trust you with their money, you need to look like somebody who knows how to handle money. And a suit and a sports coat conveys that message. Now, as I've said before, this sales process works for all industries, and that includes industries where you might not need to dress up that nice, industries like the trades. However, I would argue that dress code, even in the trades, is just as important as it is in professional services. If you are running appointments for a trade-based business, I recommend having a nice pair of pants as well as a polo shirt, kind of like the one that I'm wearing right now. Because the reality is this, you could be the best plumber in the entire world, but if you are dressed like you live in a garbage can, then nobody is going to believe you. I also recognize that this does open up a potential problem. And that problem is that some people in the trades will do the work right after accepting this potential customer as their new customer. So if you go on site and give a plumbing bid, you might start doing the work on that plumbing right then and there. So the obvious problem is, well, I'm not dressed to do plumbing work right now, so how am I going to complete this work? And there are 2 solutions for you. The first solution, and this one seems pretty obvious, have a change of clothes in your vehicle at all times so that you can jump into doing work and collecting money at any given time. The other option is that you can simply schedule the time for you to do the work at a later day. I recommend scheduling the work to be done over having a change of clothes in your vehicle if you can avoid it. However, I recognize that in some cases you have to travel a long distance in order to give the bid to do the appointment, and it might not make financial sense to schedule a later time to do that work. So you should try to schedule the appointment so that you can dress appropriately, but also have a change of clothes in your vehicle if the need arises. So do both. Number 3, you need to call ahead of time to confirm your appointment. I recommend calling to confirm your appointment the morning before you go to the appointment or the night before. This is very important to decrease the amount of appointment no-shows that you have. Now, it doesn't matter how good you are at this process, your no-show rate will never be 0%. However, if you can decrease your no-show rate from, say, 50% down to 10% or 5%, that simply just means more money in your pocket. And the best way to confirm an appointment is to simply call the person that you're doing the appointment with that morning of or the day before. Now, this next part is very important for you to follow. It's tempting for you not to follow this, but it's very important that you don't yield on this point. If you call your appointment and they do not answer or they don't call you back in a reasonable time to confirm their appointment, then do not go to that appointment. I know it can be tempting to go to an appointment just because what if they're actually there and we can run the appointment, and after all, I want to make money. But this goes back to the point that I made earlier about not showing up to your appointments early. You need to convey to your potential customer that you're good at what you do, that you're very busy, and that you're doing this for them and they are not doing it for you. By showing up to an unconfirmed appointment, you are ruining that whole bedrock of the appointment that puts them in the driver's seat and not you in the driver's seat. So don't do it. I have a rule when it comes to unconfirmed appointments. If somebody no-shows you or does not confirm their appointment, I give them one opportunity to reschedule that appointment. If after you've rescheduled the appointment, they no-show or they don't confirm the appointment again, then move on and do not work with those potential customers. I know it can be tempting to want to keep chasing these people, but the reality is that if somebody doesn't confirm or somebody no-shows you twice, then there's somebody who's going to string you along most likely throughout the entire sales process, and at the end, they're not going to buy from you anyways. So cut your losses and move on to working with potential customers who actually want and need your service. Suggestion number 4, before heading into your appointment, we need to remember that our goal is to talk less than your potential customer talks. Statistics show that when your potential customer talks more than 50% of the time, the likelihood of you closing that appointment skyrockets like exponentially. But the more you dominate the conversation, the more you talk and the less you listen, the likelihood of you closing that appointment decreases exponentially. So going into the appointment, we need to remind ourselves constantly that I'm not here to talk the whole time. They should talk more than I talk. Number 5, ask, don't tell. Now we're going to uncover this tactic more in the later trainings, but before you start an appointment, it's good for us to remember that I am here to ask my potential customer questions instead of telling my potential customer things. Now, as we all know, it's going to be necessary for me to convey information to my potential customer, and I have a choice on how I convey that information. Here's a very simple example. In a roofing appointment, I could say, Mr. Customer, you need to replace your roof. Or I could say, Mr. Customer, based on everything that we've talked about, do you believe your roof needs to be replaced? So I'm conveying the exact same information, I'm just packaging it in a different way. And by packaging it in the form of a question, it accomplishes a couple things for us. Firstly, it's less authoritative and more inviting. It's going to make the rest of the appointment go much smoother. Secondly, asking a question requires them to answer, hence helping us with the previous tactic of allowing them to talk more than we do. And thirdly, it forces them to say yes. And we're going to talk about why that is so important right now. And the last thing that we need to remember before jumping into an appointment is that we need to gather yeses. Answering a question with yes and also answering a question with no, it carries something like momentum with it. For example, if I go through an appointment and I ask 5 questions and they answer those questions no, 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 What do you think their answer is going to be when you finally ask them for their business? It's probably going to be no, because they've built up a no momentum. Now, conversely, if you ask 5 questions throughout the appointment and their answer is yes, 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 yes the whole time, when you finally ask for their business, what do you think their answer is going to be? It's more likely that their answer is going to be yes. And also, if you don't ask them questions at all throughout your appointment, and the first question you ask them is whether or not they will become your customer, it's hard to answer yes when being asked a question for the first time at that high of stakes. So we want to build up answering yes as momentum leading up to the final and most important question we ask them, will you be my customer? This helps us make the barrier to answering yes lower and lower and lower every time we ask a yes question. So those are my tips on what to do before you start the appointment. Just to recap, show up to your appointment on time, not late and not early. Dress nicely, as reasonably as you can for your industry. Call to confirm your appointments. If they do not confirm the appointment, do not go to the appointment. Talk less than they do. Ask them questions, don't tell them answers. And finally, gather yeses before asking the final question. So that concludes the appointment closing training part 1, and I will see you in the next video.